Thank you for Patreon now for donating to the Patreon.
Hey guys, it's Vandy Azul back into the Cardfight Vanguard deck profile. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Like, comment, subscribe, and let's go and start, shall we? This time we're covering set 10, Nirvana OverCrossDress. So, aka, this is what people call the Nirvana hybrid, where you run crossdress and overdress, except I know I take it a step further than everyone else is taking it because I went out of my way to make everything that isn't a prayer dragon, a PG, or a trigger into a one of. And now you may be, and Trickstar by the way, and you may be thinking I'm joking. No, I am genuinely being serious. Everything in this deck that isn't the cards I just listed are all one ofs. So we're in for a long ride today. So I hope you guys are ready for a bunch of fucking story time and the longest deck profile of your life. So let's go ahead and get this started, shall we? First up today, we have our starter in Trickstar, grade 0 boost, 5k shield, 5k base, continues rear guard. This you cannot be chosen by your opponent's card effect. Okay, first up, it doesn't have the draw scope, which is fair, so if you're going second, you're kind of losing out on this. But first up, the thing that's important about this is I even did the math on this, and I even proved it the last time I did this deck profile, and that is if Trickstar is the starter, for whatever reason, I have a higher chance of actually drawing into my other Trickstars. So I've kind of just let this be my starter, draw into my Trickstars. I can do more combo plays, and not to mention the fact that it being the starter means I can Soul Blast it out early, and then I can call it back via any of the Nirvana skills. I say any and not either because all three are in here. And yeah, so being able to proc off combos just by having one extra, by giving up that draw at the start of the game and honestly increasing my chance of getting other Trickstars in my hand is a pretty solid give up to me. So one of Trickstar in the ride deck. And the other thing I want to quickly say, because I forgot to say while I was doing the intro over here, is I know this deck sounds stupid being one of everything, including one of each Nirvana, but I actually promise you this thing works in the dumbest of ways possible, and I don't understand it myself, but it does. So anyways, let's continue on. First up, we have our Overtrigger and Dragon Deity King of Resurgence, Dragveda. Grade 0 boost, 50k shield, 5k power. Overtrigger, melee one Overtrigger in your deck. When reveal the trigger, move the card, draw a card, choose one of your units, I guess plus one for the turn. And if you reveal it during draw check, activate its additional effect, which you can choose one of your Vanguards and stand it. All around, pretty solid because two of the three Nirvanas have effects that activate on attack, neither of them are once per turn. I mean, you can use their abilities multiple times, so you can plus 10 to front row twice, or you can restand a rear guard twice. Either way, you can do more multi-attack or more power gaining skills, and also just being able to attack with the Vanguard twice is just fun too, because that's double the pressure, because your drive checks are field crits, and if you're on Malhar, well then fuck your opponent, because you got 6 drives that turn. So, one of Dragveda, all around pretty solid. You can run either of the two Overtriggers for Dragon Empire. The only reason I'm running this one is because A, this one's in English, and B, it came out with Nirvana, and might as well make it the unholy combination of these two. I'm going to be clearing my throat a lot during this one. Then we have our normal triggers. First, we have 3 copies of Blaze Maiden and Parama. Grade 0 boost, 15k shield, 4k power, continues guard circle. If your opponent's Vanguard to grade 3, gives with 5k shield. Ah, yes. The surprise front triggers that when I first built this deck, I completely forgot were in here. And then when I drive checked them and won a game with it, I was like, huh. I feel like an anime protagonist because I didn't remember I had fronts in this deck, and apparently I did. So all around pretty solid. Being a 20k shield is helpful, especially when in this deck there are a lot of different pieces that you don't want to have to discard. So being able to even just save 5k shield is pretty important. And not to mention the front trigger being a plus 10k to front row. Listen, if you're on crossover dress, you are putting more pressure with a bunch of on hits, and then you are giving them more numbers. Oh, your opponent is definitely losing a fuck ton of hand cards today. And if you're on regular Nirvana, for whatever reason that may be, or Mahar for that matter, you are just putting more numbers on top of more numbers, therefore making their guards that they have to guard it much bigger. 3 of Parama. She shows up just as often as a 3 of, and like I said, 20k shield is important in this deck. We're good with 3. Then we have 4 copies of Flail Dragon. Okay, in this version of this deck, we would be insane not to run draws in general. Grade 0 boost, 5k shield, 4k base. Draw trigger, use guard circle. Opponent's Vanguards are grade 3 grades plus 5k shield. So just like the front trigger gets an extra 5k shield, they're at grade 3. So 10k shield isn't that great, but it's still really good because, again, it saves you a little bit of guarding power and could save you the pieces that you want to call for next turn. And then not to mention it being a draw trigger is very important because it helps increase your hand. And this deck has a lot of different pieces you're going to want to get into your hand. So running the draw trigger is not really an option. So 4 of draws, 3 of fronts. The front is technically your option of choice, but I suggest you don't because, again, it works. And then we have our 4 crits and Burning Flail Dragon. Grade 0 boost, 15k shield, 4k power, auto rear guard. The antibody this boosted. Put it to soul, choose one mutes, I guess plus 2k for the turn. Okay, the 2k doesn't really help that much because, it's barely under a magic number range, but it does go to soul, and this deck can go into, again, everything's a one-of, so a lot of different games could come out of this deck, but there are game situations where you will run into soul problems. Have I experienced them yet? No, but is it possible? Definitely. So 4 of crits, just because it's a critical trigger, you want to put pressure, especially with like everything else in this deck that this thing does. But then also getting soul is also important. So 4 of crits. Yes, we run rainbow because fuck it. And then you're gonna all hate me for this. Went the full way to make this deck have like every different card possible. This slideshow has a total of 32 slides. So yeah, we're gonna be here for a while. Anyways, we have 2 copies of both heals, Blaze Maiden Rona and Blaze Maiden Rioni. Both are grade 0 boost, 15k shield, 5k power. If you're wondering why I'm running the normal heals and not the effect heals, because I don't really like the effect heals. I feel like they're too situational, being 10k shields most of the time, and then only being 25k shields in very specific situations. I'd rather have the consistent effect heal, or non-effect heals. And if you are wondering why I'm running 2 different heals, is because I couldn't decide which one do I want to use more between old Nirvana heals, aka Rona, and new Nirvana heals, aka Rioni. And I was like, you know what? Both of them I have good luck with. Let's shove them together and see what happens. And yeah, I was right. I would double my luck somehow. So 4 heals in total. Then we have 3 more copies of Trickstar in the main deck. I'm not going to go over its ability again, but having resist is pretty nice, so your opponent can't target it when it's on rearguard circle unless they hit everything at once, because it cannot be chosen. Doesn't mean it can't not be hit by effects. So RM pretty solid, and that's pretty much it for 3 ofs. And now onto the Prayer Giants before we run. Okay, I'm going to say this now. Once we get past the grade 1s, everything's a 1 of. So get ready to hear that, but for now, let's go on to normal numbers. 3 copies of Flash Equipped Dragon Brahmada. My boy, my favorite prayer dragon. We all knew this was coming. Grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base. Auto when it becomes an original dress. Counter boss 1 to draw 2 cards and 2 cards from hand discard it. I love this skill so much. Being a simple CB1 to draw 2 and then drop a card, and then you can use Vils to return that card to hand if it was a crossover dress is amazing, because that essentially means counter boss 1 to draw 3. Just solid. I love Brahmada a lot. It's just a good grade 1. I think it's great, and I love its art. It also has a bow, and we all know I'm biased towards bows, so 3 of my boy. He's just great. I can't really describe any other method of why I like this thing. Then we have 3 copies of one of the best cards ever revealed for crossover dress. Tell me I'm wrong. Illuminate Equipped Dragon Graillumirror. So, grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base. First up, I want to say I still love like the thumbnail I did with this and mirrors, because like they line up so fucking perfectly well like Legion. But then anyways, auto, when it becomes an original dress, this ability does absolutely nothing in my crossover dress deck, but it does something here. Soul Blast 1, and this is why we run Trickstar as our starter. Look at the top 7 cards of your deck, choose up to 2 cards with Vairina and their cardiness from among them. Finally, for once, it doesn't matter if they're crossover dress, regular overdress, it doesn't fucking matter. Any of the Vairinas, you can reveal them, up to 2 of them, put 1 into your hand, up to 1 into your hand, and then discard the rest. So you can discard 2 and add none, or you can add 1 and discard 1, and then shuffle your deck. Shuffle the rest back into your deck, sorry. Beautiful. This thing straight up can get you another overdress or crossdress play just by being in an overdress or in a crossdress itself. It gets you a Trickstar in a drop zone, therefore you can use Nirvana's skill to call another Trickstar out, and it fills up your drop zone so you can abuse the hell out of things such as Vils or, what's it called, Esper Aridia. This thing is just beautiful, it does its job great, and it's an easy 3-0 for me. Then we have 3 copies of what is my friend's favorite prayer dragon, so fair, we get to run both of our favorite prayer dragons in this deck. 3 copies of Strike Equipped Dragon Stragallio. Grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base. Auto was placed on rearguard circle from your hand, because otherwise it'd be abusable by Nirvana. If you have a Vanguard with Nirvana as its card name, discard 1 card from your hand and search your deck for up to 1 card of either the Overdress ability or up to 1 Trickstar, reveal it, put it to your hand, shuffle your deck. Okay, I used to hate on this thing because, it is a prayer dragon, and yet it specifically searches Overdress and not crossover dress, but, I come to not hate that card, because A, it gets the card to hand, so you can search Trickstar, ditch Trickstar for Nirvana Haeva skill, call Trickstar, call a prayer dragon, and then just crossover dress, so fair enough. And then auto, when this card becomes an original dress, by counterblasting 1, call a Trickstar from your drops on the rearguard circle. Sometimes that actually is useful. If I'm going for like full extension play, like I want to flex on someone, or I want to double crossover dress, or I just want to make a board, honestly, Stragallio is useful for that. Like counterboss 1 to get a Trickstar isn't that bad, especially now with countercharge, so people can shut the hell up about counterboss problems. It's just a good grade 1. I love it a lot. I think it's great. I know my friend likes it more, and that's probably why he's going to abuse that later, so 3 of Stragallio. Then we have our 2 PGs. Both of them are 2 ofs, 2 Sparkle Rejector Dragon, 2 Twin Buckler Dragon. Both of them are grade 1s with boost, 0 Shosis K base, and they both have the same skill and continue Sentinel. You may only have up to 4 cards with Sentinel in your deck, and then autos put on guard circle, choose one of your units, it cannot be hit in a battle, and if your hand has 2 more cards, you can discard it. Standard PGs, nothing too special about it. Basically, that means if this only one of the cards you need to place on guard circle, you don't have to discard 1 from your hand, which is great, so that means you can be as aggressive as you want in the early game. And if I remember correctly, I don't remember if it was this deck or the pure version of Crossover Dress, but but I went all in on my grade 2 turn and dropped my hand to 0, and then I got a draw trigger, and I used mirror skill to get an extra draw from it, so I had a total of 3 hand cards at the end of that turn. But the point is, I went down to 0, and basically, if your opponent counterattacks you in that situation, you can be like, oh, throw down PG when I only have one other card. Granted, I have to throw down another card beforehand, but throw down PG when I only have one other card. I don't have to discard, which is great, because I can be as aggressive as I want in the early game, and then not have to pay too much repercussions for it later on. So all around, that's pretty good. Again, you can choose to do what I do and run them both at 2-0s, because, you know, this one came out with old Nirvana, this one came out with new Nirvana, or you can just run one of them as a 4 of it. It's honestly up to you, but yeah, like I said, I do this for both bits and because I'm an idiot. And then we have our last grade 1, and the start of the trend of 1-ofs. I was not joking earlier. Starting here, everything's a 1-of, so I will not be saying it anymore. So, 1 copy, that's the last time you're going to hear me say that this video, of Heart Pounding Blaze Maiden Reno. Grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base. Auto when she was rode upon by snuggling Blaze Maiden Ryu, search it up to 1 Trick Star, call it to rear guard, and shuffle your deck. All around pretty solid, get you a free Trick Star for cross overdressing or overdress plays, pretty good. And then continues rear guard during turn. If you have a prayer giant and combat as her, she gets plus 5k power. Okay, that's never going to happen because you don't have any copies in the main deck, and there's physically impossible to call her out from soul or to soul blast her and then call her out from drop. But if you ever found a way to do it, she's a 13k base on rear guards if you have a prayer giant and calm. Either way, really good. Getting a Trick Star is nice, and then again, the 13k base isn't that bad if you find a way to call her, but there's no reason to run her in the main deck because this deck is already very piece reliant, even with all the 1-ofs, so yeah, there's Reno, 1-of in the red deck, none in the main deck, and I already broke the promise of saying I wasn't going to see 1-ofs anymore. Then move on to our grade 2s. First up, we have Vairina. Grade 2, intercept, 5k shield, 10k base, overdress, trick star. You may place it by stacking on a specified unit of said normal, calling it to rear guard. That is the only time I'm going to explain the concept of overdressing. I'll explain cross-dress when we get to it. So, you know, basically, it has to be placed on the exact same circle trick star is on for it to be considered an overdress. Otherwise, you can just call it normally to anywhere you want to. But yeah, so if the trick star is in back center and you overdress trick star, you got to do it in back center unless you got another trick star on board. And then its ability is auto rear guard unless you attacks in the overdress state into a vanguard. It gets plus 10k for until that battle, and then you make soul blast 2, and if you do, choose one of your opponent's rear guards and kill it. All around, pretty solid. You know, being able to kill an opponent's rear guard is very important, especially because, you know, it helps you get trick stars into drop zone from the soul blast 2 skill. And again, this is one of the things that can get you into a soul blast problem in one of the many game scenarios this deck can go through. But getting rid of a rear guard that might be the reason you lose later on is pretty great. So like, say for example, it's a, what's one of the most important grade 1s in like history? I guess Sequena and Youthberg. If for some reason they left it on the board, you could kill it. So that's a way to plus off it. And then, you know, being a guaranteed 20k swing regardless of what your vanguard is, as long as it's in the overdress state, is pretty great. So cool. There's our Vairina. Then we have Vairina Arcs, grade 2 intercept, 5k shield, 10k base. Everyone's favorite Vairina except for mine, and I've come to hate him less considering what the original version of this deck was. And then when I made this version, he still doesn't like, or sorry, he doesn't hate me as much as he used to, question mark. I don't know how to explain it, but we all know how this works. Anyways, the standard overdress thing with Trickstar, and then auto when it's placed on rear guard circle, if it's in overdress state, by counterblasting 1, draw 2 cards, and this unit gets plus 5k power on the turn. All around, pretty solid. You know, being able to draw 2 is pretty nice, especially because it helps you draw more of your pieces, so like prayer dragons, Trickstars, other overdresses, and cross-dresses respectively, even PGs, or in my case, double triggers, which ends up helping me guard in the long run, is pretty nice. And then being a 15k base for that turn isn't amazing if it's like on grade 3 turn, but that's why you overdress him immediately afterwards with one of our few other overdresses. But at the same time, it can still be useful in the sense that if you're on grade 2, it's a 10k drop to block him. So cool. Vairina Arcs is great. I know people are probably screaming at me to run it at 4, but this whole deck is meant to prove a point that you can run a bunch of things that one of them still works. So screw everyone else that's thinking otherwise. Then we have 1 copy of Vairina Urger, my favorite Vairina, and to fuck everyone else for not doing this. Grade 2 and stuff like I should 10k base. Wait, no. You want to know? I want to talk about this real quickly. I saw a video go. I'm not going to say who it's from, but they said something about like Urger, and it was like Urger's importance. And I remember I read a comment, and this was like after I made the Dear Days video about like, you know, how I think when my friend explained to me how people play Nirvana, it's just you use all your overdresses to, by the way, this overdress Nirvana, not cross overdress, you use all your overdresses to turbo out Esparidia, and I literally saw someone comment about that and be like, you know, I never thought about Nirvana as another way, that there's other ways to play outside of turbo out Esparidias. And my thought process, does no one pay attention when I say anything? For like every Nirvana deck, I specifically made it clear that the goal was never to go into Esparidia. Does no one listen to me? the fuck, people? Especially because that video had Urger in the thumbnail, and I was so happy about that, but fuck other people for that. Anyways, Urger, my boy, standard Overdress with Trickstar. And then auto hand, at the end of the battle, your Trickstar attacked the Vanguard, whether it was boosted or not, but typically it's going to be boosted because you want Trickstar to hit. I typically call Brahmata behind it. What do you call behind your Trickstar to hit the Vanguard? You have to Soul Blast 2 if your Vanguard is a Chakrabarti, Divine Dragon, Nirvana. That is possible in the deck because, again, there's one of each Nirvana. And then Overdress this card onto your Trickstar as a rear guard, a stand, and then countercharge 1. All around pretty good because, you know, it, again, Soul Blast, it can be one of those situations where it could fuck you over with Soul, but at the same time, again, it does filter out your Trickstars in the drop zone. Yes, you have to be on a specific Nirvana, but you can change them as you want to. And not to mention the fact that it can get you a counter charge, and people are going to complain about CB, then here's your out to it. And then not to mention the fact that it gets you an extra rear guard attack, so all around pretty solid skill. And then continuous rear guard circle. If this unit's in the overdress state, it gets a plus 10k power and 10k shield during both players' turns. So it's a 20k base and a 15k interceptor. All around pretty solid because unlike Vils, it can be targeted, but on the bright side, it can be targeted, meaning this is a retire fodder. I remember there was a game where I mind-fucked someone with, I believe it was a Valiente, and then I had this on rear guard, and they were like, oh, I'll kill, and then they go for final turn, so it makes sense that they would go for this one. But they killed this, thinking that I didn't have enough to guard, and I did. If they had actually killed the Valiente, they would have won, because I would have had the outright power to kill them, because Valiente had 15k plus. So, yeah, one of Urger. My boy, my Chad, the myth, the legend. By the way, this whole deck was actually built just so I could run one of Urger. I'm just saying that now, so cool. Thank you, Urger. You made the best deck ever. And then we have our cross overdress units. This is the only time we're going to explain cross overdress during this video. And that is Jeweled Sword equipped Garou Vairina. Great units, 5k shield, 10k base. Cross overdress, one of each Trickstar and Prayer Dragon of any Prayer Dragon. You may place this card by stacking on all the specified units instead of normal calling it to rear guard circle. So unlike overdress, where it has to go specifically on top of the Trickstar, this one doesn't even have to go on top of the Prayer Dragon or Trickstar. It can go to any rear guard circle as long as you move those two units under it. So say, for example, Brahmata and Trickstar were in the front left and bottom right respectively. You can call Garou Vairina to the front right if you put both them under it. So fair enough. Anyways, it's other, and that's the only time I'm going to display crossover dress this video. Now into the skill. Continuous rear guard. If this unit's in the crossover dress state, it gets plus 10k power, and then during the battle it attacked. When your opponent would call cards from hand guard circle, them call 2 more at the same time after during both players' turns, which is great because that means it's a 20k base during both players' turn, meaning it's harder for people to hit into it or kill it without retiring it by effects. And then when it swings, they have to drop 2 more. And if you find a way to do that during your opponent's turn, great, because then you make them drop more than just 2. But either way, it's a solid grade 2 skill being on attack and is really good as a finisher, especially with Nirvana Haeva who can restand. So easy one of finisher for tech for me. And then we have Sturdy Wall equipped Vils Vairina, grade 2 intercept 5k shield, 10k base, standard cross overdress, and then auto when it's placed on rear guard in the cross overdress state, choose a card with a cross overdress ability from your drop zone other than Sturdy Wall equipped Vils Vairina and put it to your hand. So great, this is one of my favorite cards to combo with Brahmata, to where you can use Brahmata skill when you cross overdress with Vils to say, for example, draw 2 and then discard Garou, and then use Vils to bounce back Garou, and maybe you got another Trickstar, and you happen to have Vairina arcs, and you can call Trickstar overdress with Vairina arcs, counter boss 1, draw 2, get plus 5. So on total, you drew 4 cards that turn. Either way, or technically 5, and if you count your drive check, then 6. If you got a draw check in your drive check or the over, then 7. But like all around, it's a pretty nice way to plus cards to hand and just do nice combos with it. And I cannot wait to pull that off in real life because I feel like that'd be fun. And then continuous rear guard. If this unit's in the cross overdress state, it cannot be chosen by opponent's card effects. So sadly, it can't be targeted, which I hate so much because there are a lot of games where I wish Vils would die because I bricked and I only got 1 Trickstar and/or Prayer Dragon, and Vils is taking up that 1, so I can't really do anything with it, and no one's gonna swing into it willingly, which sucks for me, but that's just how it is. Cannot be chosen by opponent's card effects, and it gets plus 5k power and 10k shield. So 15k interceptor, 15k base, active on both players' turns. Pretty nice. It helps for guarding power. It's a decent swinger, but not really for Nirvana all around. But it also can't be chosen, so at least you get like a guaranteed shield, unlike this one that can't be picked. But again, I say, it is both good that this thing can be picked and not good that it can't be picked, because if I have a better rear guard on board and my opponent just doesn't know it because they don't know it's in my hand, then it's kind of better that they picked this one. So no offense to Urger, but Urger's like a great like decoy slash just like the ultimate aggressive slash defensive unit. Either way, those are still good though, being a guaranteed like 15k interceptor, so easy choice for me. Then we have Mirror Reflection equipped Mira's Vairina, grade 2 intercept 5k shield, 10k base, the thing that made everyone scream when it was revealed in the anime, where everyone was like, highlight of the episode, crossover dress finally has counter chargers. Anyways, Mira's Vairina skill, auto when it's placed on rear guard circle by the crossover dress state, choose up to 2 cards with Vairina and their card names from your drop zone, put them as this unit's original dresses. It can be the same name Vairinas, it can be different name Vairinas, it can be any Vairinas, so it could be Garou and Vils, it could be Garou and Urger, etc. Hell, it could be 2 mirrors if you had 2 more mirrors in this deck. Anything that has a Vairina's card name, it can be put under this as original dress, which is great. And then auto rear guard, when this unit attacks into anything, great, so it can attack rear guard, vanguard, damage zone, fuck it. If this unit's in the crossover dress state, this unit gets plus 10k power to end of battle, so great to 20k swing into anyone. And then by putting one of its original dresses with Vairina, its card name, into your drop zone. I love how they had to specify Vairina because they know people would abuse the fuck out of this with, prayer dragons and trick stars and stuff like that. You can perform either a counter charge or draw. It's great because on once per turn, so granted, yes, the 10k only stays for the battle, but hey, at least for 2 battles that turn, if you're on Hayeva, that is, it's a 20k swing, and then you can choose to drop a Vairina and either to draw a card or counter charge one. Granted, you can only use it up to twice per mirrors because you can only use mirrors twice a game. You can only use it twice because you only have 2 Vairinas that go to under it, but still being able to counter charge or draw is pretty nice, and you can also use it to recycle mirror Vils. So all around easy choice for me, especially because like if you're in a situation where you might need CB, play mirrors down because counter charge is nice, or I just use it to draw. Most of the time I've used it to draw, but I think I've used it like 3 times to counter charge, and it was very fun using it to counter charge those times. Then move on to our last grade 2, it's the grade 2 of the Ride deck. Again, it's a one of, so one of the Ride deck, none in the main deck. Snuggling, Blaze, Maiden, Rayu. Grade 2 innocent 5k shield, 10k base. Auto when she's rolled upon by Chakrabarti, Phoenix, Dragon, Nirvana, Hayeva. Look at the top 7 cards of your deck, search for up to 1 Prayer Dragon from among them, reveal it, put it to your hand and shuffle your deck. And then just like Reno, it has a continuous rearguard skill where if it's during your turn, you have a Prayer Dragon saying combat source, she gets with 5k power. All around, it's not a bad skill, but again, you're not going to call her. There's no way to call her in this deck, but if you found a way to do it, great. Then she's a 23k base with a column of a Prayer Dragon in it. But the main skill of looking at the top 7 after being rode upon by Nirvana Hayeva is just great because being able to fetch a Prayer Dragon, it's almost guaranteed to happen in this deck, and you can use it to get Stragallio, who can fetch a Trickstar or an Overdress. You can use it to fetch Graillumirror, who might be able to fetch you an Overdress or a Crossdress, or you can get my boy Brahmada and A, not be dead to me, and B, draw your hand cards. So either way, Rayu ends up being a not a Harbinger, but what is it, like the leading domino and the domino pod that could lead to stupid bullshit. So one of Rayu in the right deck. Then we move on to our grade 3s. First up, we start with this order that I rarely play, but I play it anyway just because I want to. Clad in Prayer. Grade 3 normal order, play this card if you have a Vanguard Nirvana and its card name. Oh, just Nirvana, huh? So it works with any of the 3 that currently exist and probably anyone else that comes out that happens to have the name Nirvana in it. Great. And you have 1 or more units in both the crossover dress state and the overdress state each. So, you could have mirrors and Urger, or or Garou and Arcs, or Vils and Vairina. Hell, technically speaking, you have Garou and Vils in the front row, and then you can have Vairina in the back row. That was an actual game I had at some point, and it would still proc off. Anyways, choose one of your units in the overdress state specifically. So it's weird that it requires the overdress state, and it gets auto rear guard once per turn. When your Vanguard attacks, stand this unit, and then until end of turn, choose one of your units in the crossover state and it gets plus 10 for the turn. So basically, one unit, the overdress unit, gets on the board when your Vanguard attacks, stand it. So great, you have a possibility to get 5 attacks if you're on Hayeva, or you have a possibility to get 4 attacks if you're on either the other 2 Vairina, or not Vairinas, Nirvanas. But then also, as a separate skill, but still part of that same skill, someone that in the crossover state gets plus 10. So Garou might not be a 30k swing, those finally might be a decent number at 25. Mirrors might be a 30k swing now, and then the other ones we'll get to in a hot second. So either way, Cloud Prayer is a really good order. It gives multi-attack options, it gives power, it does it for free, and while yes, a lot of people complain about this, requiring 2 different cards that require a fuck ton of pieces on board to do this, you have to remember, this deck is made specifically for that, so there's no real problem with running this in the deck. So yeah, take that as you will. I just wish its art wasn't as basic as it looks. Then we have our boy Vairina Valente, probably the first Vairina that actually made me want to play Nirvana, because I did play Nirvana starting set 1, and it was mainly Valente that made me do that. Grade 3 Turner Persona, 13k base. I do love his cape, though I do think it's weirdly animated in the anime. Standard overdress of a Trickstar. I think continues rear guard this unit with 5k for each of this unit's original dresses. So it is, I messed up. It's a Trickstar or a grade 3 or less unit in the overdress state. So technically you have another copy of this, you can overdress it on top of itself, or you can dress it on top of Expecta. In total, I think this deck can get so Expecta, so it has to go Trickstar, Esperidia, into, which happens to have Urger, Vairina, and Arcs in it, so that's 5, and then, you know, Esper Radio gets turned into Expecta, and then Expect, so total 6. So at most this thing can get plus 30, but if I'm doing the math right, which I might be wrong on that one. But either way, it's a solid skill, because most of the time it's going to be like an 18 or 23k base, which is still pretty good, because it also has an auto rear guard once per turn ability, where when the attack this unit hits anything, as long as it's in the overdress state, so it can be Vanguard or rear guard that it hits. If counterboss 1 and discard 1, stand this unit. All around, pretty solid. You can get multi-attack. Yes, it involves a discard and a hand card, or sorry, a discard and a counterboss, which is kind of like 50-50, but hey, you're going for multi-attack, so if you have like this on your board and you have Braum and like you have this that restands it on its own, and then you have Nirvana, it's just really nice pressure that you can put on your opponent, and again, it gets power really quickly, and it's continuous rearguard skills during both players' turns, so might as well run in the deck just because fucking numbers and restand. And then we have one copy of Vairina Expecta. If you can't tell, I put them in the order that they actually appeared in. I took the time to detail that. Anyways, grade 3 to persona, 13k base. Overdress unit in the overdress state. I hate that about this unit because that lost me a game one time where I didn't have a other unit with overdress and I only had Trickstar. But, so yeah, you can't go right onto Trickstar with this. You have to do something like on top of Vairina, who's already in the overdress state, like Vairina Valiente or Urger or Arcs or regular Vairina, or you can do it on Esper Radio because it says any unit in the overdress state, which is great. And then continuous rear guard. This unit gets the original power of all its original dresses active on both players' turns too. So it doesn't do like, if say for example Trickstar was under this and then you overdress it, it doesn't get the plus 18 from Valiente. It gets plus 18 in total. So like the 5k from Trickstar and the 13k from Valiente. But like if Valiente was on top of Vairina, Arcs, and on top of Trickstar, so that would be plus a total of 28 to Vanguard, or plus 28 to this thing. So it'd be a total of 41. Either way, very solid. It gets basically base numbers and no one's touching this thing unless they kill it by effects. And then auto rear guard. When this unit attacks into a grade 3 or greater Vanguard, if this unit's in the overdress state, by counterblasting 1, this unit can get plus 15k in a critical ton of battle, and at the end of that battle, put all this unit's original dresses into the drop zone. Overdress state ends if there's no original dresses. All around, it's like, this thing's a big-ass fucking beat stick to face, and your opponent's probably not stopping it, considering it's probably somewhere in the high 70s or even low 80s. I remember there was a game that actually got to like 96 or something. So, all around, pretty solid. The downside is it drops all of its original addresses, but hey, you can use that to go right into Hesperia next turn, if there is a next turn. So, one of Vairina Expecta, just a solid fucking beat stick, and the second thing comes down, your opponent's going to be like, I should have saved that PG from last turn, shouldn't I have? And your response will be, yes, you should have. Then we have my boy, my favorite crossover dress, both because of his arrow, both because, you know, he is in combination with Trickstar and Brahmada's power combined, and also just because I like him the most, and that is Brilliant Equip Parama Vairina. Grade 3 200 persona, 13k base, and a crossover of a Trickstar and a Prayer Dragon. Continues rear guard during your turn. If this unit's in the crossover state, this unit gets plus 10k power, and then if your opponent's Vanguards are grade 3 or greater, gets another 10k. So, you know, guaranteed it's a 23k base if it's in the crossover state. And then if he wins second, it's a 33k base. All around, pretty solid, big ass number. And then auto rear guard once per turn when its attack hits a Vanguard. Doesn't matter what grade it is. Grade 3, grade 4, grade 10, grade fucking 2, grade 6 if they made it happen. If this unit's in the crossover state, Soul Boss 1, choose an opponent's column, kill it. So, or like choose a column. Apparently it's your specific column, and then retire all your opponent's rear guards in that same column. So, all around, fair enough. You know, you can kill your opponent's rear guards in one go, and it does bypass Trickstar, so in a mirror match, this can get around it, because Trickstar says he cannot be chosen by effects, but this doesn't choose Trickstar, it chooses the column, therefore it would still hit Trickstar regardless, or just hits any unit that has wording like that, unless it's like a flat-out resist. But, all around, pretty solid on Braum. Has on-hit pressure with Nirvana Haeva. It can restand, so you got 2 attacks that turn that could possibly kill a column, and 2 attacks that turn that might be at 33k base. It's just all around a very solid grade 3 to hit with, and that's why he's my favorite. So, easy one-up for me, and honestly, if I were to text something down for him, I would have put it Braum, the extra card I put in. Then we have our boy Flaring Cannon equipped Bard of Vairina, aka the only Vairina I run in here by, like, I feel like there's an obligation to run it because I'm running everyone else. It's like the, you know, if you bring food in for yourself, you have to bring food in for everyone rule. I don't like Bar very much, but everyone else is here. Might as well bring him in too. Grade 3 persona, 13k base. Crossover dress of a Trickstar and a Prayer Dragon. Act rear guard. If this is in the crossover state, Soul Boss 2, choose an opponent's rear guard and kill it. Okay, that is rarely going to be used more than once a game because, you know, this deck already has a semi-ish soul problem. If, again, one of those like situations where all the Soul Blasters show up at once happens. So, not that amazing. Killing 1 rear guard, which is why I like Braum more, because you can kill 2 rear guards for half the cost, even though it has to hit. And that's other skills, auto rearguard. When he attacks in the crossover state and attacks the Vanguard specifically, it gets plus 2k to end the battle for each of your opponent's open rearguard circles. So, you know, if they have a total of 5, for whatever reason, it's a 23k base. And then if your opponent has 1 or less rearguards, by counterblasting 1 to end a battle, this unit loses a drive check and it performs drive checks. So it gets a drive check, basically. So it's not bad. The CB costing is also not horrible, unless like you're going like 3 C. Assuming if you use this at all, you're probably going to restand it with Haeva and then do it again. So you're probably dropping 3 CB a turn. The thing is, like, you're rarely going to be able to get in the situation where your opponent has less than 1 rear guard and be able to pull out that ability twice, because, you know, it only going to probably go off the first ability once, and they're probably going to have more rear guards, and that's where Brahm's going to have to come in. So, you know, one of Bar, it's not bad, but, like, there's not enough soul to go around, and Bar kind of hogs it all. So take that as you will. Yeah. Then we have our, you know, non-Vairinas, until we get to Esparidia. We have Chakrabarti Divine Dragon, Nirvana! I don't know why I expected, like, Haeva to come after that. Anyways, grade 3 type start, 13k base. The OG, active Vanguard once per turn by discarding a card from your hand, choose a grade 0 from your drop zone, call it to rear guard. Okay, I love the versatility of this because you can call a Trickstar, but because this deck has an ability to, if I can get to it, but because this deck has the ability to call Trickstar from pretty much fucking anywhere, call a heal, call a crit just to get soul, call draws, call fronts, call the fucking over if you want to. I remember I did that once and it was fucking funny. So, honestly, Nirvana has the ability to call anything, even though Trickstar is the only thing that's going to matter, but hey, take that as you will. And then Auto Vanguard, when this unit attacks into anything, by counterblasting 1 and this unit and all your units within the Overdress ability, so not cross Overdress, but Overdress in general, so things like Expecta, Valiente, these motherfuckers. So all around, all of them, including Nirvana himself, get plus 10k power. All around, pretty solid. Basically gives you a persona right to front row. Great, adds a little bit of pressure, and that gives Urger's combos a little bit better because, you know, you can do your Trickstar swing with a booster from, like, say, for example, Brahmada, and then use, if you're on this one, then use Urger's skill to Soul Blast 2, call the Urger, then swing with Vanguard, counter blast 1, give plus 10k to Urger in itself, so therefore you didn't really lose out on the booster. All around, I like Nirvana a lot. I think it's great. Adds numbers, has a non-restricted search of, or not restricted search, but non-restricted call of a grade 0. So all around, it's decent. It's not amazing, but it's good enough. So 1 of Nirvana. Also because, you know, it helps proc off Urger's effect, because, you know, Urger requires a specific Nirvana. And then we have 1 copy, and this is the Ride deck grade 3, by the way, but you can switch these if you want to, if you wanted to, that is, but I like to have this one, especially because, you know, the grade 2 has to proc off from riding Haeva. So, 1 of in the Ride deck of Chakrabarti Phoenix Dragon, Nirvana, Haeva! Or if you're a pleb, Chakrabarti Phoenix Dragon, Nirvana, Jiva. Grade 3 jump persona, 13k base. Active Vanguard, once per turn, discard card from your hand, shield up to 1 Trickstar and up to 1 Prayer Dragon unit from your drop zone. Call them to rearguard circles, and then auto Vanguard, when this unit attacks, counter boss 1, choose from your rearguards and crossover state and stand it. All around, pretty solid, you know, being able to call both a Trickstar and a Prayer Dragon is pretty great. So you basically drop 1 to call 2, so it's better than this one, even though it is restricted to a Trickstar and not just any grade 0. But hey, you get 2 rearguards, which is great, and if you're bricked and you don't have any overdresses and crossdresses, which is a very rare occurrence, but it has happened before, you can just rush your opponent down with a bunch of grade 1s and 0s, and I have actually won a game by doing that. So never give up with this deck as long as you're on this one, because this one can get you a board really quickly. And then, you know, the ability being able to stand, you know, I like how both versions are slightly different. This one values power more, this one values multi-attack more, so, you know, you can abuse Braum and Bar with it, or you can use Garou's ability to drop 2, or even Bills if you have to, which most of the time I have to. So, you know, all around, pretty great. Get you rear guards, get you multi-attack. Both are pretty good in their own respective rights. So always choose which one you want to ride. I choose to still keep this in the ride deck, but because I draw this very often before I get to grade 3, I can tend to choose, do I want to go into Nirvana for my grade 3 ride, or do I want to go into Haeva? Most of the time it's still Haeva, but you get the point. It's always the options. Then move on to our grade 4s and our last 2 cards of the deck. Thank God, I'm getting tired of talking. We have 1 copy of Chakrabarti Jew Dragon, Maha Nevada! So, for the record, I run this, not in the original version anyways, I ran this on the basis of the joke because I wanted to say you use chant when he fights against Shinobu, which is, and I forgot it a little bit, but it's like, what was it called? Flames intertwine and burn red, the fire bestow... Wait, so yeah, the flames intertwine and burn red, what's it called? First they dance and then become wings. The fire bestows the gift of flight and turn everything else to ash. And I love that, and I wanted to play He Said with it. And then this week, He Said had came out, and I've been spamming He Said in pretty much every theme except for Megumi's and Urara's theme on my music playlist. So yeah, I have now more or less memorized the lyrics to He Said. Let's go. Anyways, and now I can say that bit whenever I feel like it. Anyways, grade 4 triple drive, 13k base, continues Vanguard during your turn. If you have a unit in the overdress state, all your friends get plus 10. great. It can do a pseudo persona ride, so you know so you're not really missing out on not having like an extra persona ride or on either of these two. So free plus 10 is great as long as you have any of like the 6 cards that have overdress, so that's great. And its other ability is Active Vanguard once per turn. Counterblast one and put a Nirvana in its card name from your hand or soul into your drop zone. So you only have 2 shots at this because you have Nirvana, Hyeva, and this one. Choose a grade 0 from your drop zone, so it doesn't have to be Trickstar, but it most likely will be. Call it to rearguard and choose one of your opponent's Vanguards, and if your opponent has 4 damage or less, deal 1 damage to them. All around great. Too bad it doesn't nullify trigger, so they can still just like damage trigger out of this. But all around great. You know, it can do a damage before you start attacking. Granted, it only has 2 fires of its skill, but it can still call you a Trickstar out or any grade 0, so it can get you Burning Flail, which is the other option because you know Soul. And then also being able to get plus 10 front row just by having an Overdress State unit. And again, the Overdress State unit can be in the back row because I remember there's a game where I had a Braum and a Garou in the front row and I had an Arcs in the back row, and Mahar just happened to give the plus 10 in the front row because I had you know, the Arcs in the back row. So all around, Mahar's pretty good. Gets numbers. I can do jokes with it. I get to call rear guards with it. The only thing is like it's out of everyone who calls Trickstar, this one has like the worst skill in my opinion because again, you only got 2 chances at this one. At least this one you can kind of recycle. Also, once you get to Mahar, you can't go back to either of these two because you can't downgrade. So yeah, once you get to Mahar, you have to be sure you're winning on it because I'm just saying, because if you don't have an Overdress State, you're kind of fucking yourself. So one of Mahar. And the very last card in this deck is Vairina Espraridia. Great board, triple drive, 13k base, overdress with a Trickstar. It has to be specifically Trickstar and nothing else. If you even try it on anything else, it will fucking fail immediately. Auto, when it's placed on rearguard circle, if this unit is in the overdress state, put all Trickstars and all cards with the overdress ability from your drop zones as this unit's original dresses. Okay, I love how we all kind of predicted, like, what mirrors would do, because we all said mirrors was going to be kind of like Espraridia, where it can like take all the overdresses or like all the cross dresses and put them under it or something like that, or like clone cross dress abilities. It kind of did that. Like, I mean, granted, it only took 2, but it was like kind of Espraridia's like weaker version because it took stuff from drop zone under it, so that's great. But yeah, every original overdress ability, sadly not every Vairina, but that is still a total of 5 because it's Expecta, Valiente, Urger, Arcs, and Vairina, so at least 5 are going under it, which is great. Or, you know, you can just do the 4, and oh, it's also Trickstars, by the way, so if you have all 3 in drop, you can send them under it too. But then, you know, you could just put Expect on top of this, so fair enough. And then auto rearguard once per turn. When your Vanguard attacks into anything, whether it's rearguard or Vanguard, Soul Blast 1 to stand this unit, and this unit gets 5k power to end of turn for each of this unit's original dresses. That will typically be normally 5, because probably double Trickstars and then 3 of the other overdresses. But if you manage to get like all 8 under there, then is it 8? Yeah, it is 8. So, or technically it'd have to be 9. Okay, if you manage to get all 9 under there, plus Mahar, because you'd have to be on Mahar to get this out. So 23k base, 9 times 5 is 45. So I said 23, right? So 68. All around, pretty solid numbers. Hits pressure, obviously expected hits for deadly more pressure because it gets around the same number and gets double critical. But hey, you know what? Espraridia is still pretty great. Has the numbers, has the pressure, has the restand for multi-attack. What's not to like about it? And if you combo this with, where is it? Clad in Prayer, and you happen to have another overdress such as Valiente on board, so you get less power, you still get double restand while you're on Mahar. So all around, Espraridia is good for pressure. One of. And that is it for the one of everything that isn't a Prayer Dragon, PG, or Trigger, or Trickstar deck. I hope you guys enjoyed. I know this one's longer than my normal deck profiles, but to be fair, I had stories to tell, and this deck is honestly very fun to play. Whether you believe it or not, this deck genuinely is fun to play. It is stupidly consistent, and it does what I want it to do and does what I need it to do when I need and want it to do it. So, like, if you doubt me, so be it, but go test it, because it's genuinely stupid of how good this deck works. I'm going to end it here. I hope you guys enjoyed. And that's my last deck profile for set 10, thankfully, so now I'm done. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, join the Discord, follow Twitch, and I'll see you all in the next one. Don't forget to stand up your Vanguards.